In 2008, the US housing bubble had burst, and the economy had collapsed. By the end of the year, Democrats had won an additional 8 seats in the Senate and eventually ended up with 60 seats, giving them a supermajority. In addition, they flipped 21 House seats and elected the new president, Barack Obama, in a landslide. You would think that at this point, Obama would have been able to pass just about anything. Well, you'd be wrong. From the beginning, Obama had planned to pass massive healthcare reforms and have a joint speech to Congress announcing as such. Once the actual plan had been revealed, the 41 Republicans led by Mitch McConnell announced that they had opposed it. Democrats had 58 seats in the Senate. To pass the bill, with no Republican support, they would need 60 votes, which had given Republicans an ounce of leverage, at least until Pennsylvania Senator Arlen Specter had decided to return to the Democrats. 59 seats. In Minnesota, a close race had delayed the seating of comedian Al Franken, and it wouldn't be till June of 2009 he would finally be sworn in. 60. With a 60-seat supermajority, Democrats were eventually able to rank 60 senators, while cutting many provisions to please Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman. It had taken a year, but in the waning days of 2009, Obamacare had passed. In both the House of Representatives and the Senate, not a single Republican voted for it. Less than a month later, for the first time since the 1970s, Republicans won a Senate seat in the Massachusetts special election, ending the supermajority. In the 2010 midterms, Republicans in the House flipped 63 seats, retaking control of the House. Almost immediately, House Republicans rushed to pass bills to repeal Obamacare, all of which immediately died in the still Democrat-controlled Senate. In 2012, Obama would be reelected. McConnell had noted that the only way Obamacare would ever be repealed would be for Republicans to win elections. Otherwise, there was little they could do. However, Obama was not the only one to win in 2012. Born from Cuban refugees, newly elected Senator Ted Cruz was not one to back down or give in to what he viewed as government overreach. Cruz had previously served as Texas Solicitor General, clashing with the Bush administration in the Supreme Court. He was willing to fight Republicans and Democrats alike to achieve his goals. Alongside friend and ally Mike Lee of Utah, two men would embark upon a new crusade against Obamacare. The first part of this battle began in September of 2013. The House of Representatives had passed a temporary spending budget called a continuous resolution. A continuous resolution funds the government, or parts of it based on prior spending, while a true budget can be made. Now remember the CRs, as these become important. As part of the September 2013 CR, the Republican House had defunded Obamacare, which would have gone into effect in 2014. The Senate Democrats, led by Harry Reid, were expected to restore this funding as part of the vote. To stop this, Cruz began what became a 21-hour filibuster. During this filibuster, he could not sit, use the bathroom, or stop talking, though he could take very, very long questions from other senators. The hope of this was it would raise public support against Obamacare. As part of this, he infamously read Green Eggs and Ham to his kids back home, ending it with Americans do not like green eggs and ham. They do not like Obamacare. They don't like it in a box, with a fox, in a house, or with a mouse. Ultimately, Cruz ended his filibuster, which technically wasn't a filibuster, after 21 hours, and the Senate voted on an amendment to re add the Obamacare funding. This was only the beginning. Days later, the government shut down. Now, generally, when the government shuts down, all federal programs stop. Museums and parks, veteran benefits, and pretty much everything you can think of. Historically, both in 1995 and in the future in 2018, Republicans got blamed for the shutdowns. Since Democrats generally are the ones willing to spend, Republicans are seen as at fault when the money runs out. To prevent a repeat from 1995/1996, Cruz and Lee had a plan. Early into the shutdown, pressure began to build to fund the government for veteran benefits. To get around this, House Republicans used mini CRs. Remember, CRs can be used for specific things. Senate Democrats had little they could do in passing the bill. Reid argued that the government could not pick and choose what is funded. Reid then said the shutdown has cut off funding to children cancer research. A reporter then asked why not fund that since Republicans had passed a CR for it. Reid responded, "Why would we want to do that?" What the fuck? It was clear that this strategy had begun to place pressure on the Democrats, and it had also been pressuring Senate Republicans. The strategy had been a gamble, and McConnell did not believe that it would be enough to force Democrats to reform Obamacare. Ultimately, on October 16, 2013, Senate and House Republican leadership passed a compromise bill with Democrats that restored Obamacare funding. It was signed into law by Obama that night. Now, I want to stop and look at all that has happened. You may recall in the last video, I called this principled but ultimately doomed, and that wasn't a mistake. My two main sources for this video was McConnell's book, The Long Game, and Cruz's 2016 book, A Time for Truth. From the perspective of McConnell, this was a futile and pointless attempt. With a Democratic controlled Senate and presidency, there was little the Republicans could do. In 1995, when Republicans had risked a shutdown, it exploded in their faces. With no leverage and a historic disadvantage, Republicans could only lose, and with the midterms only a year away, it could cost them big. Going back to 1995, the shutdown saw Clinton become more popular and gave him a boost going into the 1996 presidential election. McConnell's fear was enough voters would be turned off, and Republicans would, as in 2010 and 2012, lose winnable seats in the Senate. McConnell preferred winning in 2014 first, and then having a united Congress to place brakes on Obama's policy. If 2014 were to result in Democrats holding the Senate, it could see Obama continue to push liberal policies through the House. In comparison, Cruz had preferred to make a stand. He believed that if Republicans united behind messaging around the mini funding bills, it could see just enough pressure to force Reid and Obama to at least moderate Obamacare. To be clear, no one was expecting for Obama to sign a bill repealing Obamacare. The goal had been to reform it. The lack of support from leadership had also come as a shock to Cruz and company. To them, McConnell's pragmatism was not strategic, but cowardice. It is difficult to say exactly who was right. On one hand, polling from the time did show Republicans in the Tea Party especially were blamed. Democrats led by Reid used messaging that made the budget an all or nothing rule. In controlling the Senate, they could ensure this. On the other hand, in the 2014 midterms, Republicans had massive gains. In the House, Republicans won a record sized majority. In the Senate, Republicans flipped 9 seats, winning a majority. Republicans would take control of Congress, and as McConnell preferred, be able to assert their priorities far more successfully than they had with just the House. As for Obamacare, in 2016, Trump was elected president. Despite campaigning on repealing Obamacare, he was unable to repeal it. Senator John McCain of Arizona, who had run against Obama in 2008, would cast a shocking vote of no ending with a tally of 51 to 49. After 8 years of conflict, Obamacare would live.